Hello and welcome to what may be my very last video for World of Warcraft. I'm Fox and this is an Unmarked Gamerz Fireside. So anyway, in a recent interview with Polygon, Hazzicostas, lead designer for Blizzard's World of Warcraft, outright stated that at this point we feel that outdoor gameplay in World of Warcraft is ultimately better without flying. We're not going to be reintroducing the ability to fly in Draenor, and that's kind of where we're at going forward. Now, I've been playing this game for about 10 years, maybe the full 10 years it's been available. Remember when I played on a friend's account in vanilla, when flight paths meant fly from this town to this town, click on the flight master, hop the next leg. When you couldn't get a ground mount until 40, and epic mounts, yes, back then mounts had locked speeds, were insane to get it, be it price or otherwise. You'd kind of get a cinematic overview of the zones you were in through the flight path, so you got to appreciate the level of detail and design that went into the game. It wasn't even until a patch that you were able to take and go from flight path to flight path without landing. So on PvP realms, ambushes were usually set up at the flight masters throughout the old world because every player passing through had to land at the same spot. It wouldn't be though Burning Crusade when flight would be taken to the next level. With other aspects of World of Warcraft, such as professions. I mean, you had to do a number of things to get to flying in Burning Crusade. You had to get to level 70. You had to get trained in expert riding skill, which was 900 gold. And then you had to get your mount, which was 100 gold to top that. So, 1,000 gold, that's about, if you didn't play as much, that's about a week or more of just farming the gold to get to the flying. You didn't care. Once you managed it, your mount slow at the time. It was same as ground speed, just in the air. But it was great. You could go anywhere. You can save money on flight paths. You can farm mats, complete quests with efficiency, get to dungeons and raids quickly. And it was so great and worth all the trouble and all the expense. You even needed flight to access content. There were factions that relied solely on your ability to fly in order to work with them. And then came, our esteemed Lich King with his hordes of undead abominations and death knights, and flying was so popular that they didn't want to take it away from players completely, yet they also didn't want us skipping content and lore in Northrend. So they gave us cold weather flying as the gate, an additional skill required for flight in Northrend. You couldn't get it until 77, and it was 1,000 gold again. But by the time you got to that point, you'd already quested through most of the zones, and the last two existed with flight in mind from the outset, such as the airship hubs in Icecrown, or the entrance to Old War. The one place, however, aside from certain flightless areas in Outland and Northrend, was the one we wanted the most, the Old World. If you were to have been able to fly in the Old World in Wrath, you would have seen things that, the developers didn't want you to see, such as missing geometry, textures, stuff like that on the ground are invisible, but if you took a flight path and, they didn't really pay attention, or you had your view distance set way, way, way up, you could see this stuff. So, in order to allow flying in the Old World, Blizzard had to rebuild the Old World, and at the time there was no incentive. So, enter our friend Deathwing, Breaker of Worlds, which wrought cataclysmic destruction throughout the Old World. With this turn in our story, Blizzard had its incentive, its reason, and its excuse to redo the Old World to make it flight capable, whilst tying into the lore and story. In fact, that was this destruction that allowed them to completely redo the whole world, from design to quests, bringing in new factions, streamlining leveling, making the game generally more fun and quicker pace to get to end cap. And the cost to us was the Flight Master's license, which became available at level 60, with changes to mounts themselves to make your character hold your speed versus the mounts, because back then mounts had the set speed and you would summon your fastest mount. But now in Cataclysm, it became you set your speed, and it didn't matter what your mount had. So, aside from a few key things like, the sea turtle, you would always go the same speed. You could even fly faster for 5,000 gold. So, and here's where the problem comes in. The developers hated flying for the way it enabled us to skip content, to explore without risks for achievements, for example, to complete quests with pinpoint precision, and, avoid world PvP. Their idea of immersion is to feel danger as we explore and encounter barriers to basic tasks. So, in Myst, they returned us back to the model of Burning Crusade, with no flight until max level and purchased from the new capital for 2,500 gold. In Burning Crusade, flight enabled you to unlock new content, such as raids, rares, entrances, even cooking dailies. Myst also brought with it one of the most welcome changes to the mount system, making them account-wide and a new UI to sort through them. It was fucking great. And then Warlords of Draenor came out. Yeah. So, Warlords of Draenor came out without flight from the outset, but always with the maybe later attitude. They even introduced new in-store, for cash, for profit mounts that are flight capable in the expansion. The Mystic Rune Saber. The recent interview shows that though they decided flight will no longer be a reward, you will be forever You will forever have to be grounded. I can't speak anymore. You will forever have to be grounded running through mobs, even if they're below you, simply because it makes things more savage. It makes things more annoying. Hazzicostas believes that it makes the world feel smaller, and in some ways it does. However, it's that smaller feeling that enabled us to get so much more completed in a single setting of game time. I mean, we used it not to skip content all the time, but to skip non-relevant content we'd already experienced or otherwise didn't care about. He spoke of a prisoner escort quest being broken by flight. Why wouldn't you have thought of, stating escort the prisoner to safety? Why wouldn't you just have to break him out, escort him from point A to point B, protecting him the entire way, and if he survives, the quest is complete? If you can't, in your highly paid position of power, come up with reasons and zones or areas where flight couldn't be performed for, a logical in-game reason, you probably should reconsider your resume. Okay, let's think about this. The Shattrath Apexis dailies. Okay? All the aerial bombardments out there, who's to say you couldn't get shot down for being too near it? On the Isle of Thunder, we had the lightning itself. Here we have bombs. On some, we just accepted it, like the Isle of Quel'Danas. So why can't you just come up with a reasonable explanation? You get dragged out of the sky by chain throwers and frostfire, torn from the sky by birds and spires, stuff like that. Instead, here we sit with the decision that flying is bad, we hate flight, by developers who numerous times figured out how to incorporate it into the game previously as part of your leveling and continued play in zones. So, what his answer is to all this? His big idea is to work on improving flight paths, something they've been trying for so many years to do, but yet can't figure out that unless I have a flight master I can summon with a connection to every point in the continent, with flight points at every major area they want to send me, it isn't an improvement over mounting up, setting my heading, and flying there my damn self. I mean, right now in the forums, they're blowing up with pro and anti-flight arguments. People are posting screenshots of their subscription cancellations. In my case, I've relegated myself to pretty much stop playing once my time is up. I've got 17 days right now. And it's all coming back to the same thing. Blizzard has demonstrated a lack of real creativity, not only with this expansion, but their entire mode of thinking when it comes to game design in World of Warcraft lately. To say I can't fly myself when I have over 100 flying mounts, yet somehow can hop this wyvern and fly, is ludicrous and anti-immersive in and of itself. To debut yet another paid flying mount while simultaneously stating that flight won't be available for this and future expansions, it's crap. To say that, flying is not part of the game at this point, part of the core mechanics of this game, is just stupid. It is a core mechanic required for efficient gameplay, as much as all those add-ons that they have incorporated directly into World of Warcraft through the years. Like, okay, here's one that they added. You know how if you take a quest, it shows a nice blue area on your map where you need to go, shows a little point and stuff. That used to be an add-on. I believe it was called Quest Helper. And before that, you didn't have that. You had to read that quest text. You had to look at your map and know exactly where things were. And if you didn't, you went to a website and it tried to help you out as best as it could. But back to the point, flight enables quick play for those on a time crunch, enables greater exploration. And honestly, if you can't figure out how to make flying work for you in terms of design of zones as a game developer, you might need to go back to class. So, I'm pretty much done on this now. I mean, after, since almost a beta of playing World of Warcraft, at the end of my current token time, I'm done. I would say I'm sorry, but they did nothing to retain me this expansion. Nothing to address the numerous issues brought up time and again in feedback in the forums and direct feedback on Twitter. And they've all but abandoned us as, players. They engage with us like we're money rather than players. And they've even outright shown arrogance towards those attempting to express valid concerns and criticisms. Like, okay, a prime example of this would be Jeremy Fiesel, senior game designer, who, in response to a concern by a user, the user stated to him on Twitter, he said, I would hope after today's earnings call, you would have a shift in the way you are doing stuff, especially community interaction. Now, that is a logical and valid criticism. That's saying, you've lost some serious numbers here. This is coming about because you're not listening to us. We just want you to listen. And Jeremy replies, and has since deleted this, I plan to post more cat pics. That is not the way to run your game. Not a game of this caliber. Not a game that has been here for 10 years. If you want this game to be here another 10 years, you damned well better start listening to what we say and what we feel, because without us, there is no game. You have no game. You have no money. All those other projects, Hearthstone, Heroes of the Storm, StarCraft, Diablo, all those were funded primarily out of us who play World of Warcraft. So, Blizzard has really got to start listening to us again. They did so well back when Ghostcrawler was around. I mean, he came out, he defended his changes. He said why he did it. If he made a change, he gave reasons. Now, we don't really get that. So, I'm pretty much done. Unless there's a major change in the attitude and approach to the player base, I think I'm going to end up finding a new game to play. And many of us are. I've seen the forums with the number of cancellations. I've seen the conversations with GMs over this. We're done. We're not taking it anymore. So, Anyway, this has been Fox for Unmarked Gamers. And if you have a suggestion for a new MMO for me to play, feel free to hit me up in comments. Thank you. Have a good day.